How's everybody doing? Yeah, it's okay, I guess. Kind of snowy outside, but other than that, it's fine. It's January. It's going to snow, okay? You guys know that. Thanks for being here. If it was July, that might be an issue. If it's snowing in July, then we might cancel church at that point. But January, come on. It's going to snow. My name is Brian. Boy, he's mean. My name is Brian, and I'm one of the pastors here, and I am glad that you're here. I really am. We're in this series on Judges. We're in part 2 of Judges, and I'm having a good time with it. I hope you guys are. And we're going to be in chapter 13 today. It's an origin story. It's kind of cool, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a movie soon. You always got to have the gritty retelling of a story, and so this one, maybe we'll put it into a film. But before we get into Judges 13, I wanted to start with a relatable premise. Do you guys ever have people over to your house? Yeah. We do that from time to time as well. And we had our small group this last Sunday, and they were supposed to come over at 5 o'clock. And I got up early on Sunday. I went to Manistee, our Manistee campus, and led worship there. So I had to get up early to get there, and I'm not going to tell you what time that was because you might think I'm not that cool because it's not that early, or you're going to think I'm really cool because you think it is early. So whatever early is to you, that's what time I woke up. All right? So I woke up at that time. It was early, whatever that time is for you. And I went to church and led worship, and then I got home in the afternoon, and we had just gotten all that snow, and so I had to plow the driveway. So I plowed the driveway, and then I got in the house, and it was a little bit messy, and I knew that we had these friends coming over, and my wife was gone doing something else, and so I was the only one home, and I was like, well, I really want to take a nap, but the house is a mess. How many of you guys love naps? Oh my goodness, you guys. As a kid, I hated naps because I was always in trouble, and so the nap was what I had to do because I was in trouble. But as an adult, like kids, as an adult, you're going to love naps. You really are. So I decided instead of cleaning the house that I was going to take a nap, and maybe I could get up in time to clean the house before everybody came over. And so I did. I took a good nap in the basement, and everybody was coming over at 5, and I woke up at 4:45. Plenty of time to clean the house in 15 minutes. So, you know, what you do in that mad rush. If anyone's had a messy house before, I've never walked into a messy house at anyone else's house, so I think it's just us. But we cleaned. I cleaned by putting papers where they were not supposed to go, papers that were on the counter, and pencils. Like I put them in with the tin foil, and toys in the spice drawer, and just making the appearance of clean, so that when everybody comes over, they're like, wow. They are such a well put together family. We aspire to be them someday. And so I pretended to clean the house. Just don't open any cupboards. Don't just sit in our living room and don't touch anything, and it'll be clean, right? So we did it. We had our small group. Everybody thought we were this amazing clean family, and I started to believe that as well. I'm like maybe I really did clean everything really, really good. Monday morning is, I have my day off on Monday, and my wife went to get some tinfoil out of the tinfoil drawer, and there's a bunch of paper and pencils in there. She's like, what? Why is this in here? I was like, oh, yeah, about that. I'm not as great of a husband as you think I am. I didn't come home, do all the dishes and clean everything and plow and get in a nap. I just threw stuff where it needed to be. So I kind of let her down. But I think that's kind of life, isn't it? How we act a lot of the times, like we pretend to have everything all put together. We're all here. We all put on our nice clothes and got here to make it look like we have it all put together. Right? We've got our family, we're good, everything's right. And we don't let anyone see behind the cupboards. We keep it kind of surface level. And I think that's what's happening. And I think that happens a lot here in Judges that we're looking at. I think people were just kind of surface level stuff. And we look at Israel and we can identify with the people of Israel more often than not because they're God's chosen people. They're supposed to be set apart and holy and all this cool stuff. And they just keep doing the wrong thing. And so we can look at that and have hope, because if Israel was doing that, that means that there's hope for me, because there was hope for Israel, there's hope for us. Jesus is that hope. And so with that, we're going to go into Judges 13. Like I said, it is kind of an origin story, and we're just going to pick right up on verse 1. And if you thought that was a random story, it'll all make sense, hopefully, later on. All right, so we're in Judges chapter 13, starting in verse 1. And the people of Israel, again, did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord gave them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. 40 years. Now that's a warning for us. Okay, that's a warning, because it's not what the people of Israel did not think they were doing evil, but they were doing evil in the sight of the Lord. And so God let them be into the hands of the Philistines. God said, if you're not choosing me, choose whatever it is you want. I'm handing you over. And that's a warning for us today. You decide. God's here. He wants to be in relationship with you, but it's our decision to make. So it's a warning, right? He's not going to just make you come to him and get rid of all of your freedom. He's going to say, if you want this, it's here for you. Otherwise, go do whatever it is that you wanted to go do. It's a warning for us. I better stop commentating on every verse, because we're only in verse 1 and we've got like 25. So keep on going. Verse 2, there was a certain man of Zorah, of the tribe of the Danites, whose name was Manoah. Manoah. I know what I just said about not doing commentary, but I have to... Let's just talk about this for a second. Do you ever wonder where Bible names came from? Manoah? Really? How did they come up with Manoah? I got an idea. I bet Manoah's parents, Gail and Dan, they were just, they're expecting this baby, and they're excited to have this baby. And Gail's like, you know what? We got to name this kid Manoah. No, not Manoah. We need to name him Noah. Noah's going to be his name. And Dan's like, there's already a Noah. I don't think we can do that. There was a Noah. He is really popular. We know about him. We can't let him be just Noah, because that's not. He's going to have too much expectation on his plate from the get-go. And she was like, no, his name's going to be Noah, because Gail's pretty stubborn. And so they have the baby, and she's like, this is Noah. And then Dan takes Noah and shows the family, this is Noah. And the family's like, did you say Noah? He said, no, my Noah. This is my Noah. Manoah? Did you say Manoah? Yeah, it's Manoah. Our kid's name is Manoah. Noah's not right. Okay, so we have Manoah. It's somewhere in the Bible. I think you can look it up. If you have a tab group, go find it later. Okay, so whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and had no children. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, behold, you are barren and have not borne children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Therefore, be careful and drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. Then the woman came and told her husband, a man of God came to me, and his appearance was like the appearance of the angel of God, very awesome. I did not ask him where he was from, and he did not tell me his name. But he said to me, behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. So then drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb to the day of his death. And then in the next few verses, we have Manoah wanting to make sure that that's a confirmation. Manoah's like, you just had some random dude come up to you and say that you're going to be pregnant? I got to corroborate this story. So he prays to God to have this happen again. Send this guy again so that I can talk to him. Manoah didn't quite believe at this moment. So verses 8 through 12 is just him talking to God and making all of this stuff happen to try to find this angel of the Lord again. And the angel of the Lord does come again, and we pick it back up in verse 13. And the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "Of all that I said to the woman, let her be careful. She may not eat of anything that comes from the vine, neither let her drink wine or strong drink, or eat any unclean thing. All that I commanded her, let her observe." Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "Please let us detain you and prepare a young goat for you." It's not going to go well. And the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "If you detain me, I will not eat of your food. But if you prepare a burnt offering, then offer it to the Lord." For Manoah did not know that he was the angel of the Lord, obviously. And Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "What is your name, so that when your words come true, we may honor you?" And the angel of the Lord said to him, "Why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful?" So Manoah took the young goat with the grain offering and offered it on the rock to the Lord, to the one who works wonders. And Manoah and his wife were watching. Manoah doesn't understand at this point. He doesn't understand who this guy is yet. And when the flame went up toward heaven from the altar, the angel of the Lord went up in the flame of the altar. It's a cool party trick. Now Manoah and his wife were watching, and they fell on their faces to the ground. The angel of the Lord appeared no more to Manoah and to his wife. Then Manoah knew that he was the angel of the Lord. And Manoah said to his wife, "We shall surely die, for we have seen God." But his wife said to him, "If the Lord had meant to kill us, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and a grain offering at our hands, or shown us all these things, or now announced to us such things as these." And the woman bore a son and called his name Samson. And the young man grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him in Mahaneh-dan, also known as Manamana from the Muppets, between Zorah and Eshtaol. So we have this story, the birth of Samson, and some of you probably know about the story of Samson, and if you're like me, I didn't really ever read into the origin story of Samson, and so this was new for me, and I got to study it, and it was pretty cool. And what we see here is something that we can take out of this story. This isn't just going to be a history lesson on how Samson was born and what happened here, but there's going to be some application for us. And the first thing I think that we can see here is when we look at Manoah and his wife, specifically Manoah's wife, the faith that she had in the angel of the Lord. And we can look at the angel of the Lord, and you can look this up. Again, if you have a tab group, you can seriously look this one up. Anytime that it says the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament, which is pretty much the only time that it happens except for before Christ's birth, the angel of the Lord is Jesus, or God the Father. So when the angel of the Lord appears to Manoah's wife and to Manoah later on, they are seeing Jesus. And what happens is they see Jesus and their lives are instantly changed. From that moment forward, they have this radical encounter with Jesus, and everything in their life changes. She's going to have a kid, and they become Nazarites. So for us, the call is when we experience Jesus, in that moment, our lives radically change. And I hope you let Jesus in to experience him and let him completely change your life. If we've experienced Jesus, if we choose to follow him, our lives should look different. Our lives should look different. So we have Manoah and his wife, and they become Nazarites. And I really wasn't sure what a Nazarite was, so we had to look that up as well. And a Nazarite, you can find this in number 6. Again, join a tab group, look it up. Number 6, it goes through all of the things that a Nazarite had to be. A Nazarite was like a super Christian, someone that really was you had Israel, and then you had Nazarites that even followed even more so. And Nazarites, this is a cool thing, you could volunteer to become a Nazarite. You didn't have to be born into a certain tribe to become a Nazarite. You could become a Nazarite. It was something that you did out of response to God. Does that sound familiar? Out of response to God, people became a Nazarite. And you could do it for a week, you could do it for 30 days, you could do it for a lifetime. And what that meant for you, if you wanted to become a Nazarite, there was this whole thing that you had to do. Again, number 6, if you want to look it up. But there are three things that Nazarites had to adhere to. The first one was they couldn't have any wine or any grapes or anything that came from the vine. They couldn't have vinegar, they couldn't have grapes, they couldn't have grape juice, they couldn't have wine, which was kind of a big deal because water was dirty back then. They didn't have water purification systems, and so naturally the easy thing to do was to make wine out of it so that they could drink it. They couldn't do that. Nazarites were not allowed to do that. Number two, they could not be around dead bodies. Nazarites were not allowed to be around dead bodies. Any dead body. If someone fell over dead next to you, you had to renew your Nazarite vow. You had to renew it. Because the third thing is you could not cut your hair. So, no grapes, no dead people, and you can't cut your hair. And if that person did drop dead right next to you, you had to shave your head and start all over. The cool thing about the Nazarite vow is you can restart a Nazarite vow. If you fail in some way, God's still there, He's still speaking to you, you can recommit. Sound familiar? You can recommit. That was the call of the Nazarite. Now, in this story, what's interesting, and maybe we can look at it more next week, but what's interesting, when the angel of the Lord talks to Manoah's wife and Manoah, do you know which one he leaves out? No dead bodies. That's for next week. You'll find out. So you have to come back next week. I just think that's interesting. Okay, so we have these Nazarites. Basically, they are set apart. The call of the Nazarite is to be set apart. The call of the Nazarite is to be holy, to look different, to be different. And we have that same call. And it's out of response of what Jesus has already done. Now, we cannot make ourselves holy. Hear me very clearly. Church, we cannot make ourselves holy. I would make you repeat that, but it's too long of a sentence. So just repeat it in your mind, that we cannot make ourselves holy. The only thing that makes us holy is Jesus Christ shed blood on a cross for you and for me. That's what makes us holy in the sight of God. But in 1 Peter, our call is to be holy. That doesn't really make sense. We already are holy. Yeah, you are holy, so be holy. Act holy. Be holy, for I am holy, is what it says in 1 Peter. So we have a call to act holy, to act out our faith, to look different. And there's some things that we can do in the time that we have left on what it means. So the first one is right there, set apart. What it means to be set apart means avoiding distraction. It means we avoid distraction. That was part of the call for the Nazarites. Why couldn't they have the grapes and the wine, and they had to not cut their hair, and they couldn't be around dead bodies? It's so they avoid distraction and only focus on God. See, things distract us, and it's not always bad things that can distract us. Good things can distract us from what God has for us. If we put anything above God, if we have anything in our lives that we put above God, it's a distraction and it's turned bad. Distractions can ruin us. If we're to be set apart means avoiding distraction. How do we do that? For me, one of the most important things that I have to do is if I'm studying in the morning or whenever it is early in the morning, you know what time that is, and I'm studying the Bible or reading something, I have to, if I'm on my tablet, I have to turn the Wi-Fi off. Otherwise, I will get distracted. I'll get a notification of some kind. I get those little red bubbles with numbers in them. I hate those. I hate them. My inbox isn't clean, but it has no red bubbles. If I see that red bubble, I have to click on whatever it is. If it's Facebook, Twitter, email, whatever it is, I have to click on it to at least get rid of it. And what happens for me is if I'm studying and I see a red bubble, I have to click on it, and then I get sucked in. I get distracted by what I was doing. As much as good intention as I have to focus on Jesus and what He has for me for that morning or that evening, whenever it is, I can easily look at my phone and get distracted. It happened backstage. I was just making sure I was not theologically incorrect with something, just to button it up. And I'm looking through, I made sure I was there, and then I got a Facebook notification. And so for 5 minutes, I was scrolling Facebook. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm focusing on what I should be studying here in this brief moment that I have. In the first service, my phone started ringing, and my watch connects to my phone, so my watch started ringing, vibrating on my wrist while I was preaching about distractions. So next service, I made sure I turned my phone off. That way it wouldn't distract me. That's what I mean by distraction. I think sometimes we get so distracted by things that just don't matter. And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be our phones. It can be work. It can be friends. It can be, careful with this, it can be a spouse. Set apart means avoiding distraction. Nazarites would only be them, the average call of a Nazarite lasted about 30 to 100 days because they would mess up. And if I were in that time, I'm pretty sure I probably would have tripped over a dead body at some point. Like, crap, I gotta go cut my hair now. Man, set apart means avoiding distraction. What does that look like in your life? What are you distracted by? What's distracting you from the call of what Jesus has? Because make no mistake, Jesus is calling you. Jesus is speaking to you. God is speaking to you. The question isn't, is he speaking to you? The question is, are you listening or are you distracted by something else? We have so much distraction in our world today. It's so hard for us to hear the voice of God, I think, because we're so ingrained in so many other things and so many controversies and so many things that are incorrect in society that we start focusing on all of those things and leave God in the dust. Set apart means avoiding distraction. If we avoid distraction, it means we're committed. Set apart means being committed. It means setting down the phone, putting parameters around what you are going to be doing and knowing where your limitations are and being completely committed to what Jesus has for us. The Nazarites were completely committed. Again, I talked about the dead bodies thing. And we're not focusing on that. It seems like I've said that a lot today, which is kind of weird. But think about that. If you're a Nazarite, you've been a Nazarite for a while. Say a spouse dies, or a parent, or someone close to you dies. If you're going to keep the Nazarite vow, you do not go to the funeral. That's commitment. And a part of me, when I hear that, I was like, that's not right. But do you get the point? Jesus is number one. Our commitment is to him. And thankfully, we can go to funerals. We can mourn with those who mourn. We can grieve with those who grieve. We don't have to separate ourselves from people who are hurting and dead bodies anymore. But the call remains the same, to be as committed to Jesus as the Nazarite call was. They couldn't drink wine. They couldn't eat grapes. Have you guys had, I'm taking this off for effect, have you guys had cotton candy grapes? No? They will change your life. Imagine not being able to have cotton candy grapes anymore. It's a real thing. Look it up. Cotton candy grapes. Imagine not being able to have cotton candy grapes. But as committed as you are to Jesus, no cotton candy grapes if you're a Nazarite. That's kind of silly, I know, but I hope you understand the depth of what Jesus wants from us. The commitment that Jesus wants to us. Aren't you glad Jesus was committed as he was to what he was called to do? Are we not glad for that, church? Jesus was so committed that he died on a cross for you and for me. And our commitment is like, well, if the schedule works, if I can make it happen, if nothing else is in the way, then I'll do it. That's our commitment level. I have a friend of mine who he trains his dogs. He's got 3 dogs, and they're really, really great dogs. He goes hunting with them a lot. Like, he goes bird hunting, and I don't know anything about bird hunting. They shoot the bird, the humans, not the dogs, and the dogs will run. I think they run and find the birds before they're dead or after that. Anyway, the point is, the dogs have been trained so much so that they can run for hundreds of yards, and when they hear the call, they come running right back to him, check in with him, and then they're gone again. But every time he calls, they're back. That's how he spends hours upon hours. He goes to different states and does competitions and wins competitions because of how well trained these dogs are. They can never come over to our house before 7:30 because after work he always has to run the dogs and make sure that they're good. He's so committed to his dogs. Guys, I have 2 huskies. I'm so happy that they don't pee and poop in the house. That's my level of commitment with dog training, right? Like, okay, they didn't pee or poop, we're done. We're good. We got one of them to sit. And I didn't even train him, but I felt like the master trainer. I felt like the dog whisperer. I was like, oh, we can train these dogs, no problem. Then I couldn't get them to do anything else, so I stopped. That's my commitment level. In church, I think that's our commitment level to Jesus sometimes. Like, well, you know, I'm good enough. I showed up to church. What more do you want? I didn't cheat on my wife. What more do you want? That's our commitment level to the God who left his throne to come down to earth to save us, to die on a cross, a brutal death, a sinner's death, and our commitment level to him is like, well, I guess I won't leave my wife then. God wants so much more commitment out of us. It was the call of the Nazarite, and it's the call to you and to me. If you follow Jesus, your commitment is to be set apart. And if you're set apart, you are committed to Jesus. We align to God. God does not align to us. And too many times, we make sure that God aligns to our calendars. As long as nothing else gets in the way, we'll make the time. And I'm sorry if that feels like a guilt trip. I'm guilty too. So I'm not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Let me keep going. So set apart means avoiding distraction. Set apart means being committed. And when those 2 things are happening, that means set apart means opening the door. Opening the door, that messy house that we've pretended to clean. We've just thrown stuff in places where people can't see them anymore. That's not clean. That's just pretending. Set apart means opening the door. Set apart means that we're opening the door inside and letting God see all of the things inside of us that we don't want anyone else to see. Set apart means opening the door inside and letting other people, maybe it's a pastor on staff here at the Tabernacle, or if you're visiting and you have a home church at the church that you're at, there's a spiritual mentor for you, someone who loves Jesus and is discipling you, opening yourself up to that person and letting them see what we've been hiding for so long. And I think the reason some of us don't last 30 days committed to Jesus is because we don't want to open up the door. It's too hard. We can pretend to be clean. We can keep putting on this cool facade. We can come up to church and show up dressed up. I wore specific clothes to make myself look good today because I'm a pastor and I need to make sure that I look the part, right? I got to tell you, 90% of the time, I have no idea what I'm doing. For real. And I'm okay with that. We do not have to have this all figured out. It's okay to open up the doors and find all those papers that we've been hiding for so long. The toys in the spice rack that shouldn't have been there in the first place. It's okay to let people see those things, because guess what? They do the exact same thing. We are all cracked pots. And if that statement is weird to you, just look at our website, okay? You'll find out what a cracked pot is. We are all jacked up people. We all have our issues. So we might as well share them openly with one another and live in freedom. God calls us for freedom. And if you don't understand what freedom means, if you keep looking at your life and like, I don't feel free, I don't feel whatever this is that Jesus is calling me to, I don't feel it, I don't see it. If that's you, it's because there's stuff still on the inside that you haven't let go and you're still trying to cover it up. And if you're still trying to cover it up, that means you're not free. So unlock the door and open it up and let people in. Let Jesus in. He's not going to be surprised by what he sees. He made you. He made me. He knows. So open up the door inside. Set apart means opening the door inside. Set apart means opening the door outside. See, the Nazarites mostly spent all of their time in the Israelite camps, in all the various different Israelite camps. That's kind of where they lived their lives, and so it was a little bit easier for them because they never had to go out anywhere. But the call of us, since Jesus, is to go out into all the world and make disciples. That's the Great Commission for us as believers, is to go out into the world and make disciples. So open the door outside, let people in, and then go out and share what you've got with other people. Share the answer that you have to the person at the bank, to your coworker, whoever it is, to a family member. What does it look like to live on the outside? Don't get just stuck in this little bubble, this little Christian bubble. Don't only associate with Christian people. Don't only associate with people who are followers of Jesus. It's really important that we do that. It's important that we have that community. But it's equally as important to then go out into all the world and share what we have. And it's dangerous and it's scary and there's going to be distraction and our commitment is going to be tested. But that's the call on our lives. Our response to Jesus is to live set apart outside. 1 Corinthians 9, 22 and 23 says, as to the weak, I became weak, that I might win the weak. I have become all things to all people, that by all means I might save some. I do it all for the sake of the gospel, that I might share with them in its blessing. Who do you need to become for someone? And it's important that we look at that verse, and we look at that scripture, and we preface it with, make sure you're committed too. There's danger in that. But God didn't call us to a life of safe. He called us to a life of going out. So the challenge is to be set apart in the world. See, God has already made us holy through Jesus. Our response to that is to live holy in the world. Be set apart in the world. That's what that 1 Corinthians passage is talking about. Live holy in the world around you. Open up that door. We're going to sing in a few moments, and one of the lyrics of this song, it hit me in a way that I hadn't really thought of before. The lyric says, take me deeper than my feet could ever wander. And I was thinking about that lyric, and I was like, take me deeper than my feet could ever wander. See, so many times in our Christian life, we wander, right? We're going to try this church, that church. I don't like what they're doing here. I don't like what that person does. And we're going to change friends quickly because they upset me, whatever. And we don't really have any intentionality to it. And if we look at the Nazarite call, there is an intentionality to being a Nazarite. You had to focus on being a Nazarite. You had to focus on God in order to be a Nazarite. And I think as Christians, we kind of just do what Ben said, just kind of a lukewarm thing. But what does it look like to pray that prayer of, take me deeper than my feet could ever wander? Help me to intentionally go deeper with Jesus. Help me to intentionally open the door inside and let people in. And help me to intentionally open the door outside so I can share the gospel with some, so that I may win some, so that we may share in the blessing of what Jesus has done for us. So be set apart in the world. What does that look like for us? I think this breaks down into 3 different people groups. For some of us, this might be you. You're living in the world, but you've never been set apart. You've heard about Jesus maybe. Maybe you've never even heard about Jesus, but the call for you, if you're living in the world and you've never been set apart and you want that this morning, you want to commit to Jesus Christ, you can do that. You can start that today. So maybe that's for you. Maybe you need to be set apart. Just the base level, let's just get right with God first. Maybe for you, the next people group is people who pretend to be set apart. And I think that's a lot of us. I know that that's a lot of the time, that's me. Like I said, I try to look the part as much as I possibly can. People who pretend to be set apart, but we aren't committed. We're more committed to our calendars than we are to what God has for us. Then the last one is set apart, but not in the world. That's dangerous. We're missing the Great Commission if we do that. We omit that part of Scripture if we feel like it. Maybe for you're set apart, but you're not in the world. So I want to take some time here this morning to reflect on that and to ask God, wherever you're at in your life right now, I'm just going to ask if you would please bow your head, and we're going to spend some time reflecting on those 3 things. What group do you find yourself in, and do you want to move from that group? God's not going to force you to do that. Which group do you find yourself in? And then ask the question, do I want to go deeper than my feet have ever gone before? So pray about that for a few moments, and then we're going to sing. And when we do, if this is you, if this is your prayer, man, sing it out with everything that you have.